The smell of diesel exhaust mixed with fresh coffee hit me at 6 in the morning when two guys in hard hats nearly kicked down my front door. Metal scraped against concrete as they dragged some kind of equipment across my driveway. "Emergency building inspection," the bigger one announced, waving a clipboard like it was a court order. "Your porch is a safety hazard. Needs immediate demolition." I stood there in my bathrobe, steam rising from my coffee mug, trying to process what was happening. Behind these two clowns stood Karen Myers with that smile she gets when she thinks she's about to ruin your day. You know the type. The kind of woman who calls the cops on kids selling lemonade without permits. "Mr. Johnson," she said, practically purring, "I tried to warn you about this months ago. The city doesn't mess around with structural violations." The shorter inspector pulled out a camera and started snapping photos of my perfectly fine front porch. My grandfather built that porch in 1953. It survived 3 hurricanes and 40 years of Texas heat. But according to these jokers, it was about to collapse and kill someone. "Hold on," I said, setting down my coffee. "Nobody called me about any inspection. Where's your paperwork?" The big guy fumbled with his clipboard and handed me a form that looked like it came from a copy shop. "City of Cedar Falls Building Department," it said. Official letterhead and everything. But something felt off about the whole thing. It says here the inspection was requested by... I squinted at the signature. "K. Myers Construction. That's your company, isn't it, Karen?" She crossed her arms and gave me that look. "I'm a concerned citizen reporting dangerous conditions. The city takes these things seriously." The shorter guy was still taking pictures, getting way too close to my front steps like he was documenting a crime scene. That's when I noticed his ID badge. The photo didn't match his face, not even close. This guy was maybe 35, brown hair, clean shaven. The photo showed someone older with a beard and glasses. "Can I see that badge again?" I asked. He tucked it back into his shirt real quick. "We need to move fast on this. City regulations require immediate action when there's imminent danger to public safety." Imminent danger. Right. The same porch where my neighbor Mrs. Patterson brings her grandkids every Sunday to pet my dog. Where the mailman has been walking for 20 years without incident. "How much is this going to cost?" I asked, though I already knew I wasn't going to like the answer. Karen stepped forward with another paper. "Myers Construction can handle the demolition and rebuild. We're fully licensed and bonded. Total cost is $8,500. $8,500 for tearing down and rebuilding a porch that didn't need fixing. And the only contractor they'd accept was Karen's company. What a coincidence." "I want a second opinion," I said. The big inspector shook his head. "No time for that. City code requires immediate compliance. Every day you delay adds a $50 fine. $50 a day. They had me over a barrel and they knew it. But something about this whole setup stunk worse than the diesel fumes still hanging in my morning air. That's when I noticed the truck they'd arrived in. No city markings, no official plates. Just a beat-up Ford with Myers Construction painted on the side, in letters that looked fresher than the rest of the paint job. I've lived in Cedar Falls my whole life. I know every city inspector, every county official. I've never seen these two before. And real city inspectors don't show up at dawn with sledgehammers and cameras, ready to demolish your property on the spot. But the paperwork looked official, the hard hats looked real, and Karen Myers had that confident smile of someone who knows she's got you exactly where she wants you. In my pocket, I felt the weight of my grandfather's old measuring tool, a steel caliper he used to build half the houses in this neighborhood, back when craftsmanship meant something. Maybe it was time to see just how accurate these professional inspections really were. Because if there's one thing I learned from watching my grandfather work, it's that the truth has a way of measuring up, even when people are trying to bend it. The morning sun caught the metal of that caliper as I pulled it from my pocket, and for just a second I saw something flicker in Karen's eyes, something that looked a lot like worry. The fake inspectors didn't waste any time. By 7:30, they had marked half my porch with bright orange spray paint, making it look like a crime scene. The sharp chemical smell mixed with Karen's perfume as she supervised every mark they made. "Foundation's compromised," the big guy announced, tapping my perfectly solid concrete steps with a rubber mallet. "See these microfractures? Whole thing could collapse any minute." I knelt down and ran my hand along the concrete, smooth as the day it was poured. But when I looked closer at where he was pointing, I saw something interesting. Fresh scratches in the concrete, like someone had taken a chisel to it, just to create evidence. Those scratches weren't there yesterday, I said. Karen stepped between us. Structural damage develops over time, Mr. Johnson. You can't see everything with the naked eye. The shorter inspector was writing numbers in his report that didn't add up to anything I could measure. My grandfather's caliper showed the porch steps were perfectly level, perfectly square, perfectly built. But these clowns were documenting imaginary problems like they were conducting brain surgery. I need to see your city credentials again, I said to the big guy. He flashed that badge so fast it might as well have been a magic trick. But this time, I was ready for it. The name on the badge read, Thomas Mitchell, Senior Inspector. Problem was, I went to high school with the real Tom Mitchell. He works for the county now, not the city. And he's about 6 inches shorter than this joker. Tom Mitchell, I said slowly. Haven't seen him in years. How's his wife doing? Still teaching at Cedar Falls Elementary? The fake inspector blinked. She's doing great. Teaching's going well. Tom Mitchell never got married. Lives alone with 3 cats and a model train collection. Karen sensed trouble. We don't have time for small talk. The demolition needs to start today or the fines begin accumulating. She handed me another form. $50 a day, just like they'd threatened. But when I read the fine print, I noticed something curious. The penalty payments were supposed to go to Cedar Falls Municipal Building Fund. But the address at the bottom was a P.O. box. Since when does the city collect fines through a mail drop? Where exactly do I send these fine payments? I asked. City Hall, Karen said quickly, too quickly. I pulled out my phone and called the real City Hall. It was still early, but the automated system would tell me their hours, their address, their procedures. Sure enough, the recorded message said all building fines must be paid in person at the municipal building on Oak Street. No mail payments accepted, no P.O. boxes. While I was on the phone, the 2 inspectors started loading their equipment back into the truck. The shorter one kept glancing at Karen like he was waiting for orders. Problem, gentlemen, I asked as I hung up. Just reorganizing our tools, the big guy stammered. We'll be back this afternoon to begin demolition. That's when Mrs. Patterson from next door came walking over with her morning coffee. She's 83 years old and has lived on this street longer than anyone. Morning, Joe, she said to me. Then she looked at the orange paint on my porch and frowned. What's all this about? City inspection, Karen said before I could answer. Safety violation. Mrs. Patterson laughed. Honey, I've been walking on that porch twice a week for 15 years. It's solid as Gibraltar. She turned to the fake inspectors. You boys must be new. Real city inspectors always give 48 hours notice. Always. Been that way since Mayor Harrison's time, and that was 20 years ago. The 2 men exchanged glances. The shorter one actually took a step toward the truck. Emergency situations are different, Karen said, but her voice had lost that confident edge. Emergency? Mrs. Patterson pointed at my porch with her coffee cup. That porch could hold a truck. My late husband Harold poured that foundation himself, helped Joe's grandfather, used twice as much rebar as code required. She squinted at the orange paint marks. Those scratches are fresh too. Somebody made those with a chisel. The fake inspectors were definitely getting nervous now. The big guy kept checking his phone like he was waiting for an escape plan. We'll file our preliminary report, he announced suddenly. Demolition starts tomorrow morning. They climbed into their truck and drove off faster than any city workers I'd ever seen. But not before I got a good look at their license plate and memorized it. Karen stayed behind, still clutching her clipboard. This isn't over, Joe. The city takes building safety seriously. I'm sure they do, I said. That's why I'm going to call them right now and ask about your inspection report. For the first time since this whole thing started, Karen Myers looked uncertain. She glanced at the retreating truck, then back at me. You do whatever you think you need to do, she said. But she was already backing toward her car. As I watched her drive away, Mrs. Patterson shook her head. That woman's been nothing but trouble since she moved here, always trying to run everyone else's business. I was thinking the same thing. But now I had questions that needed answers, like why Karen's construction company was so eager to tear down a perfectly good porch, and why her city inspectors couldn't answer basic questions about people they claimed to work with. My grandfather's caliper felt warm in my hand as I studied those fresh scratches in my concrete. Someone had definitely tried to fake damage to my foundation. The question was, what else were they faking? Gravel popped under my tires as I pulled into the public library lot, the morning sun glinting off the dented fender, those inspectors brushed with their equipment. Inside, the cool air smelled of old paper and lemon polish. Rose, the head librarian, looked up from her desk, silver-rimmed glasses catching the light. "Joe, you're in early. Trouble?" "Karen-sized trouble," I said. "Need every inspection filed this year. Emergency orders only." She didn't flinch. Rose had seen half this town born and buried. She led me past sagging shelves to the archive room. Fluorescent bulbs hummed overhead. A steady mosquito whine in the silence. I scanned dusty binders while she pulled microfilm. My fingers came away gray like I'd been handling ash. "Here," Rose whispered, sliding a stack my way. 8 emergency demolition notices, all in the last 6 months. Every single contractor, Myers Construction. The fine print listed the same P.O. box I'd spotted on my form. My gut tightened. "That can't be coincidence," I muttered. Rose tapped one notice. "This house belonged to Mr. Lewis, sold 2 weeks after the mandatory repair, to a shell company." "Let me guess," I said. "Karen owns the shell." Rose just raised an eyebrow. I felt heat rise in my neck. If she'd done this to Lewis, who else was on her list? Have you ever watched someone gut your neighborhood one porch at a time? It's like termites. You don't see the damage until the house groans. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. A photo of my porch splashed across the Cedar Falls community chat, captioned, "Unsafe veteran endangers kids. City steps in." Heart sinking, I scrolled through 50 comments. Shut him down. Fine him double. Kick him out if he won't pay. The digital mob smelled blood, and Karen was holding the bucket. "If this hits close to home, hit that like button," I mumbled, half to myself, half to anyone listening through the cracked ceiling tiles. Sometimes you need folks to see the rot before they act. Rose leaned closer. "City Council meets tonight for budget talks. Public comments open." I smiled, but it felt jagged. "Good, I'll bring show and tell." Another buzz. This time a voicemail from a blocked number, a man's voice, low and shaky. "Pull back, Mr. Johnson. Demolition's just the start." Click. No name, no callback. The library lights flickered. For a second the room fell into dim yellow gloom, like an old photograph. "You okay?" Rose asked. "Fine," I lied, pocketing my phone. My fingers brushed the steel caliper. Cold, solid, honest. Stepping outside, I caught the scent of rain on hot asphalt. Across the street, 3 neighbors huddled, pointing at my truck, whispering. One raised a phone, snapped a picture, shook his head. Public opinion was tilting, and fast. I fired up the engine, the grumble of the V8 steadying my nerves. Just past the library, a banner for the evening council session flapped in the breeze. Bold red letters against white canvas, like a warning flare. My foot hovered on the brake. Tonight, I'd need more than numbers and suspicion. I'd need something no one could spin. And right then, under that snapping banner, a thought hit me so hard I almost ran the stop sign. What if the city inspector's electronic signature wasn't just forged? What if the city server logs could prove it? The city hall parking lot was half empty when I pulled in, gravel crunching under my boots as I walked toward the brick building. The smell of fresh asphalt from recent roadwork mixed with the lingering diesel fumes from the morning's fake inspection. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed over worn linoleum floors. The receptionist, a young woman with tired eyes, looked up from her computer screen. "I need to speak with Harry Garrison," I said, "the building inspector." She frowned. "Mr. Garrison's been on vacation for 2 weeks. Won't be back until Monday." My stomach dropped. Vacation? But he signed an emergency demolition order this morning. "That's impossible." She turned her monitor toward me. "See? Approved leave started September 1st. He's visiting his daughter in Phoenix." I showed her the paperwork from Karen's fake inspectors. The signature looked official, complete with the city seal and everything. But the receptionist shook her head immediately. "This isn't our form," she said. "Wrong letterhead, wrong format. And Mr. Garrison never uses his full middle name on official documents." She pulled out a real inspection form from her desk drawer. The differences were obvious once you knew what to look for. Wrong font, wrong spacing, wrong everything. Someone had done a decent copy job, but they'd missed the details that mattered. Who would know how to forge city documents, I asked. The receptionist glanced around nervously. I shouldn't speculate, but anyone with access to the website templates could download the basics. The hard part would be getting the electronic signature. Electronic signature. That was the key. In my pocket, my grandfather's caliper felt heavier as the pieces started clicking together. Someone had stolen Harry's digital signature and used it while he was out of town. But computer systems keep logs of everything. I drove to the county IT office, a squat building behind the courthouse that smelled like burnt coffee and overheated electronics. The tech guy, barely old enough to shave, pulled up the inspection database on his screen. "Interesting," he muttered, typing rapidly. "Someone accessed Inspector Garrison's digital certificate at 6:15 this morning. But the IP address..." He paused, frowning. "That's not coming from City Hall. It's a residential connection." "Can you trace it?" "Already did. The address belongs to..." He whistled low. "Karen Myers, 1712 Maple Street." There it was. Karen had hacked into the city system from her home computer, forged Harry's signature, and created fake inspection orders. But she'd been sloppy with the technology, leaving digital fingerprints all over the server logs. My phone buzzed with another community chat notification. The photo of my porch had gone viral in our little town. 57 comments now, mostly calling for immediate action. Someone had shared it to the Facebook groups for 3 neighboring communities. Karen was playing both sides perfectly, creating the fake emergency while stirring up public pressure to support it. Have you ever watched someone weaponize your neighbor's concern for their own safety? It's like watching a master class in manipulation. But I had her now. Digital evidence, server logs, timestamps that proved the forgery. All I had to do was present it to the city council tonight, and her whole scheme would collapse. That's when my phone rang. Unknown number again. "Mr. Johnson," a woman's voice, older, shaky. "I heard about your porch problem. The same thing happened to my brother last month." "Your brother?" "Jimmy Patterson. He got an emergency order for his deck, had to pay Myers Construction $9,000 to fix it. But here's the thing. After they tore down his perfectly good deck, they built it back exactly the same way. $9,000 for tearing down and rebuilding something that didn't need fixing, just like they wanted to do to me." "Did your brother keep any of the paperwork?" "Every scrap. And Jimmy's suspicious by nature. He took pictures of everything before they touched it. Want to see them?" 20 minutes later, I was sitting in Jimmy Patterson's kitchen, looking at photos that made my blood boil. His deck had been solid, well-built, properly maintained, but Myers Construction had marked it with the same orange paint, documented the same imaginary problems, charged the same inflated prices. "They threatened me with daily fines if I didn't comply immediately," Jimmy said, sliding more photos across his kitchen table. "Said the city would take my house if I didn't pay." The photos showed the same fake scratches in the concrete, the same bogus safety violations, the same rushed timeline that didn't allow for second opinions or appeals. But Jimmy had been smarter than they expected. He'd hidden a small camera in his garage window, recording the whole demolition. On his laptop screen, I watched Karen's crew work, and what I saw made everything clear. They weren't just tearing down good structures and rebuilding them. They were salvaging the original materials, storing them in their truck, then reinstalling the same beams, the same boards, the same everything. The homeowners paid thousands of dollars for Karen to tear down their property and put it back together with their own materials. "It's the perfect scam," Jimmy said bitterly. "Create a fake emergency, force immediate compliance, charge premium prices for doing absolutely nothing." My grandfather's caliper grew warm in my hand as I studied those photos. The measurements before and after were identical. Same lumber, same concrete, same everything. Karen Myers wasn't even trying to fix imaginary problems. She was just moving money from her victims' bank accounts to her own. "How many others?" I asked. Jimmy pulled out a folder thick with paperwork. "I've been asking around since it happened to me. 8 houses so far, all in the last 6 months. Always the same story. Emergency inspection, immediate demolition. Myers Construction gets the contract. 8 houses. That was over $60,000 in fraudulent charges, all based on forged city documents and fake emergencies. I had enough evidence to bury Karen Myers and her whole operation. Server logs, witness statements, photographic proof, financial records. The city council meeting tonight would be her judgment day. But as I drove home, something nagged at me. Karen was smart, careful, organized. She wouldn't have run this scam for months without a backup plan. What if she had something bigger planned for tonight? The setting sun threw long shadows across my driveway as I pulled up to my house. And there, sitting on my perfectly good porch like a coiled snake, was another official-looking envelope. This one had tomorrow's date, and it wasn't about my porch anymore. It was about my entire foundation. The envelope crackled between my fingers as I tore it open, the paper still warm from sitting in the afternoon sun. Emergency Foundation Assessment, it read in bold red letters. Immediate evacuation required due to catastrophic structural failure risk. My entire house, not just the porch anymore. The estimated repair cost made my vision blur, $15,000. And the timeline was even more aggressive. Demolition scheduled for tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. with or without my consent. The city would apparently condemn the property and bill me for the demolition if I refused. Karen had escalated. She wasn't just stealing my porch money now. She was going for everything. I called Jimmy Patterson immediately. His voice was grim when he heard the news. Same thing happened to Mrs. Chen on Oak Street last week, he said. Started with her front steps, ended with them gutting her whole foundation. Cost her $18,000. $18,000 for a foundation that was probably older and stronger than anything they'd build to replace it. My grandfather had mixed that concrete himself, reinforced it with railroad steel he'd bought from the depot when they upgraded the tracks. The community chat was exploding with updates. Someone had posted a petition to force immediate compliance with all city safety orders. 43 signatures already, including people I'd known for 20 years. The fear was spreading faster than facts. But then I noticed something in the petition comments that made my pulse quicken. 3 different neighbors mentioned they'd been approached by city representatives asking about their own foundation concerns. Karen wasn't just targeting me anymore. She was expanding the operation. My phone rang. The caller ID showed the City Hall main number. Mr. Johnson, this is Deputy Mayor Williams. I understand you've received some concerning notices about your property. Finally, someone from the actual city government. Yes, sir, I said, but I think there's been some kind of mistake. Your Inspector Harry Garrison has been on vacation for 2 weeks. Silence on the other end, then. Mr. Johnson, I'm afraid I need to tell you something. We've had reports of fraudulent inspection documents circulating in the community. Someone's been impersonating city officials. My heart jumped. You know about the forgeries? We just discovered the security breach this afternoon. Someone hacked Inspector Garrison's digital certificate and has been issuing fake orders. We're coordinating with county IT and the sheriff's office. This was it. Official confirmation that Karen's whole operation was illegal. The cavalry was coming. How many fake orders were issued? I asked. At least 12 that we've identified so far, all requiring immediate demolition or major reconstruction work, all specifying Myers Construction as the contractor. 12 houses. Karen had been running this scam systematically, probably making over $100,000 in fraudulent charges. Can you stop the demolition scheduled for tomorrow? Already done. We've issued a cease and desist order to Myers Construction. But, Mr. Johnson, I need to warn you about something else. The deputy mayor's voice dropped. Ms. Myers has filed a counter-complaint claiming you've been harassing her inspectors and interfering with legitimate city business. She's demanding police protection for her work crews. My stomach sank. Even caught red-handed, Karen was trying to flip the script. Paint me as the bad guy while she played the victim. She's also called an emergency meeting of the Homeowners Association for tonight, Williams continued. Claims your property is creating a public safety hazard that requires immediate community action. The Homeowners Association. Karen served on the board, had influence with half the neighborhood. If she could convince them I was dangerous, she could pressure the city to act even faster. I hung up and checked the community chat again. Sure enough, there it was. Emergency HOA meeting. Tonight, 7 p.m., Community Center. Topic: unsafe properties, and public safety. Karen Myers was good. She'd created a fake crisis, generated real fear, and now she was using that fear to legitimize her fraud. Even with the city onto her scheme, she was doubling down. But I had something she didn't expect. Jimmy Patterson's photos, the server logs, the evidence from 8 other victims. And I had my grandfather's caliper, which had just helped me discover something interesting about that latest fake inspection report. The measurements they'd cited for my failing foundation were physically impossible. They'd listed my basement ceiling height as 12 feet. My basement ceiling was exactly 7 feet 4 inches. I'd measured it myself when I installed new lighting last year. Karen's crew had never actually been inside my house. They'd guessed at the measurements and guessed wrong. I called Jimmy, Mrs. Chen, and 3 other victims. By 6:30, we had a plan. The community center was packed when we arrived. Karen stood at the front podium, flanked by her 2 fake inspectors, both now wearing cheap suits instead of hard hats. She'd cleaned them up, made them look official. "Thank you all for coming," Karen began, her voice carrying across the crowded room. "We're here tonight because of a serious threat to our community's safety." She clicked a remote, and a slideshow appeared on the wall screen. Photos of my house, my porch, close-ups of those fake scratches in my concrete. She'd built an entire presentation around her fraud. "Mr. Johnson's property represents an imminent danger," she continued. "Despite multiple warnings and official orders, he's refused to address critical structural failures." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I saw neighbors I'd known for decades nodding along, buying into her story. The city has ordered immediate demolition to protect public safety. But Mr. Johnson is fighting this order, putting all of us at risk. That's when I stood up. "You're right about one thing, Karen," I said, my voice carrying to the back of the room. "Someone here is putting the community at risk." I walked to the front, my grandfather's caliper gleaming under the fluorescent lights. "But it's not me." The room fell silent. Karen's confident smile flickered for just a second. "Ladies and gentlemen, let me show you what's really been happening in our neighborhood. Have you ever watched someone's whole world collapse in real time? It's like watching a house of cards in slow motion, each revelation bringing down another layer of lies. Because what happened next changed everything." I pulled out my phone and connected it to the community center's projector system. The crowd shifted nervously as Jimmy Patterson's hidden camera footage filled the wall screen. Crystal clear video of Karen's crew tearing down his perfectly good deck. "This is what Myers Construction calls emergency repair work," I said, letting the footage play. "Watch carefully." The room went dead quiet as they watched Karen's workers systematically dismantle Jimmy's deck, carefully stacking every board, every beam, every piece of hardware. Then, in fast forward, they watched the same crew rebuild the entire structure using the exact same materials. $9,000, I announced. That's what Jimmy paid to have his deck torn down and rebuilt with his own lumber. Karen stepped toward the microphone. "That video is taken out of context." "Context?" I interrupted, clicking to the next slide. "Let me give you some context." The server logs appeared on screen, timestamp by timestamp, showing someone accessing Inspector Garrison's digital signature from Karen's home computer. The crowd couldn't read the technical details, but they could see the damning pattern. "Harry Garrison has been on vacation in Phoenix for 2 weeks, I said, but somehow his digital signature approved emergency demolitions every morning this week, all from Karen's computer, all requiring Myers Construction. Nervous murmurs started spreading through the room. I saw faces changing, doubt creeping in. "Mrs. Chen," I called out, "would you tell everyone what happened to your foundation?" An elderly Asian woman near the back stood up, her voice shaking with anger. "They said my house was going to collapse. $18,000 they charged me, but look." She held up before and after photos. Same foundation, same concrete. They just moved it around and charged me for the privilege. The fake inspector in the cheap suit tried to slip toward the exit. I pointed at him. "That's Thomas Mitchell, according to his badge. Except the real Tom Mitchell teaches high school and lives with 3 cats. This guy couldn't answer basic questions about the man he's impersonating." The fake Tom froze, trapped between the crowd and the door. "How many others?" someone shouted from the audience. 12 confirmed victims, I said. Over $100,000 in fraudulent charges, all based on forged city documents. Karen grabbed the microphone. These are desperate lies from a man trying to avoid legitimate safety obligations. It's safety obligations? I laughed, pulling out my grandfather's caliper. Your latest inspection report says my basement ceiling is 12 feet high. Want to know the real measurement? I held up the steel instrument, its worn edges gleaming under the lights. 7 feet, 4 inches, same as it's been since 1953. Your people never even went inside my house. They made up the numbers. The crowd was turning now. I could feel the energy shift as people started connecting the dots. But Karen wasn't finished. Even if there were some clerical errors, she said desperately, the structural issues are real. The city has confirmed fraud. I cut her off. Deputy Mayor Williams informed me this afternoon that you hacked Inspector Garrison's digital certificate. The sheriff's office is preparing charges. That's when the fake inspectors bolted. Both of them pushed through the crowd and ran for the parking lot. Karen watched her backup disappear, her face pale under the fluorescent lights. This is harassment, she said, but her voice had lost all its authority. I'm trying to protect this community. By stealing from it? Jimmy Patterson stood up, waving his folder of evidence. 8 victims in 6 months, Karen. We've all been comparing notes. Mrs. Chen raised her hand. My nephew works in the county IT department. He helped trace the digital intrusion. Everything Mr. Johnson is saying is documented. The crowd was getting restless now. People were angry, realizing they'd been manipulated. Someone called out, "What about the petition we signed?" Based on lies, I said. Karen created a fake crisis, then used your fear to legitimize her fraud. She's been playing all of us. Karen was backed against the wall now, literally and figuratively. The community center felt smaller suddenly, the walls closing in on her elaborate deception. But she had one last card to play. Fine, she said, straightening her shoulders. Maybe there were some irregularities in the paperwork, but the structural concerns are still valid. I'm willing to waive all fees and have the work done for free. The room went quiet. A few people nodded, like maybe this was a reasonable compromise. That's when I realized Karen's real genius. Even caught red-handed, she was trying to salvage something from the wreckage, get access to our properties, establish precedent for future operations, maintain her position in the community. I pulled out my phone one more time. Karen, I said, there's just one problem with your generous offer. The screen filled with a recording, audio only, but clear as daylight. The threatening voicemail from earlier in the day. Pull back, Mr. Johnson. Demolition's just the start. That's your voice, isn't it? I asked. Threatening a community member for refusing to participate in your fraud? Karen's face went white. She hadn't expected me to record the call. I never, she started. Phone records will prove it came from your number, I said. Along with everything else, that's witness intimidation, a felony. The room erupted. People were shouting, demanding answers, calling for Karen's resignation from every board and committee she served on. 20 years of community standing evaporated in 20 minutes. But as I watched Karen's world crumble, I couldn't help thinking about tomorrow. She was finished in Cedar Falls, but fraud artists like her don't just disappear. They move to the next town, find new victims, perfect their techniques. The question was, how many other communities had she already hit? And would they ever know what happened to them? That's when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Nice show tonight, but this isn't over. Karen was already planning her next move. The community center had mostly emptied out, leaving just me, Jimmy Patterson, and a few others cleaning up the aftermath of Karen's collapsed empire. Outside, I could hear car doors slamming as neighbors drove home, probably calling friends and family to spread the news. Karen herself had disappeared during the chaos, slipping out while everyone was demanding her resignation from the Homeowners Association board. But her threatening text message still glowed on my phone screen, a reminder that cornered fraudsters don't always go quietly. Sheriff Martinez arrived just as we were packing up the evidence. He was a decent man, someone who'd grown up in Cedar Falls and understood how tight-knit communities worked. "Hell of a thing, Joe," he said, reviewing the server logs on my phone. "We've been getting reports about Myers construction from 3 other counties. Looks like this operation was bigger than just Cedar Falls." 3 other counties. How many families had Karen victimized before she got to us? "What happens now?" Jimmy asked. County prosecutor will file charges, Martinez said. Wire fraud, forgery, computer crimes, witness intimidation. She's looking at serious prison time if convicted. But I knew Karen Myers wasn't the type to go down without a fight. 20 minutes later, my phone rang with a call that proved me right. Mr. Johnson, an unfamiliar voice. This is Attorney Davidson from the law firm of Davidson, Prentice & Associates. I represent Ms. Karen Myers. Already had a lawyer. Of course she did. My client is prepared to offer full restitution to all affected parties in exchange for dropping any criminal complaints. How much? I asked, though I already knew the answer would be insulting. It to $50,000, distributed among all complainants. No admission of wrongdoing. I laughed. Your client stole over $100,000 from this community, and that's just what we've documented so far. Mr. Johnson, I should warn you that my client has substantial evidence of harassment and defamation on your part. Filing false police reports, organizing vigilante groups, damaging her business reputation. I hung up. Karen was trying to flip the script one more time, make herself the victim of an angry mob instead of the architect of systematic fraud. But she'd made a crucial mistake. The evidence wasn't just in my hands anymore. Jimmy had copies, Mrs. Chen had copies, the county IT department had their server logs, and the sheriff's office was building a comprehensive case. 2 days later, the knock on my door came at dawn. Not fake inspectors this time, but Sheriff Martinez with an arrest warrant. We found Karen Myers trying to board a flight to Mexico, he told me. Had $43,000 in cash and a new identity card. Looks like she was planning to disappear rather than face trial. Flight risk. That would keep her in jail until the trial, at least. There's something else? Martinez continued. We've connected her to similar operations in Nevada, Arizona, and Texas. The FBI is taking over the investigation. This could be part of a much larger network. A larger network. Karen Myers hadn't been a local con artist after all. She'd been part of something bigger, more organized, more dangerous. The trial took 8 months. By then, investigators had identified 47 victims across 5 states, totaling over $600,000 in fraudulent charges. Karen and her 2 fake inspectors each got federal sentences. She got 12 years, they got 4 each for cooperating. The restitution process was slow and complicated, but eventually most of the victims got their money back. Jimmy Patterson used his settlement to put solar panels on his genuinely solid roof. Mrs. Chen started a neighborhood watch program to spot future scams. As for me, I kept my grandfather's caliper on the mantle as a reminder that sometimes the old ways of measuring truth still work best. The porch he built in 1953 is still solid as the day he poured the concrete. No fraudulent inspection will ever change that. But here's what I learned from the whole experience. Community trust is like a foundation. It takes decades to build and minutes to destroy. Karen Myers understood that. She weaponized our concern for each other's safety, turned neighbors into unknowing accomplices in her fraud. The real victory wasn't just stopping her operation. It was rebuilding the trust she'd tried to shatter. These days, when someone knocks on my door with official-looking paperwork, I do 3 things: verify their identity, check their credentials, and measure their claims against reality. My grandfather's caliper has become the neighborhood's unofficial fraud detector. Because the truth has precise dimensions, and lies, no matter how official they look, never quite measure up. If you're still with me after this whole story, maybe think about your own community. Are you watching out for the Karen Myers types? Are you asking the hard questions when something seems too urgent, too convenient, too profitable for just one person? Drop a comment if you've seen something similar in your neighborhood. Because fraudsters like Karen don't operate in isolation. They count on our trust, our fear, and our willingness to believe that official-looking paperwork equals legitimate authority. Sometimes the best defense is an old steel caliper and the wisdom to use it. Truth measures up. Lies never do.